know what you're thinking. I'm an anime viewer, so what am I doing talking about cartoons since you all know that Avatar isn't an anime? To which I reply, yes, you're right. Avatar is a Western cartoon. But I never said I don't want to review anime here, now did I? I review shows that are worth talking about, and don't give me anything about how non-anime cartoons can't be good. Have you seen Black Bullet or No Zero? Anime certainly has a number of shows that are not worth remembering. But getting back to Avatar, I believe that's worth discussing as it's in many ways a hallmark of Western animation. So, on the 10th anniversary of that first episode, I present to you my review. Let's begin. The premise of Avatar: The Last Airbender is rather self-explanatory, and by that I mean the show tells it to you at the start of each episode. Take it away, Katara.
Water. Earth. Fire. Air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years passed and my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named Aang. And although his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Aang can save the world.
So yes, we have the four nations, each of which have a portion of population who are benders, those able to manipulate the nation's element like fire, earth, water, you heard all that. And then there's the Avatar, the one person in the world who can bend all four and is tasked with keeping balance in the world. But with the Avatar frozen for 100 years and the Fire Nation wiping out the air nomads, with the exception of said Avatar, the world is most certainly out of balance. So the story follows the Avatar Aang as he travels the world with his friends, learning how to bend the other elements so he can stop the Fire Nation and end the war and make so everyone lives happily ever after. And yes, this is a kid's show, something that's quite evident throughout the series. The characters are mainly kids or teenagers, there's no graphic violence, the main characters have quite a bit of plot armor, and the overall tone of the show is quite upbeat. But this being a kid's show doesn't hinder the epic journey the heroes find themselves on. Avatar is 61 episodes long, and it's able to use its length to its advantage. While it may be true that parts of the show are rather episodic, and you could call some of these episodes filler, they allow for a real gradual build-up and gives a natural feel to the plot. It also gives a good progression time throughout the series so we can feel the weeks and months pass for these characters. It's not just one big event after another, although there are enough of these big events to never be bored. The show also offers a good deal of comedy, especially with the character interactions, but they are able to keep the comedy out of the serious moments so those don't lose their impact. The length of the show is also able to make it that not all problems are solved by the end of the episode. This really gives a great weight to the struggle these heroes go through. While at times some problems are solved right away, there are many others that persist and linger, and you feel the strain of the heroes trying to figure out what to do. There's also a number of times where the heroes lose the battle, they outsmart, their plans fall apart, they just can't do anything. And this adds a great deal of tension because you know the villains do stand a chance during the battles, at least for most of them. There's also a few darker moments where the horrors of war are seen and we see that not everyone gets a happy ending. Put all this together and you have a wonderful and immersive fantasy story that kept me entertained throughout. The only major problem I ever had with the show was its ending. Without spoiling too much, it did feel rather Deus Ex Machina in a lot of ways. Though you could argue that some of these things were foreshadowed earlier, it still felt like it came out of nowhere. Another minor complaint, I guess, were the episodes that did feel kind of like filler, as they could get in the way of the overall story when I wanted to see more epic moments, but even then, these weren't bad, just not as good as some of the others. Overall though, this really is a great story. It's able to showcase something that the whole family can get invested in while still instilling some deeper themes. While the story does have a lot to offer, it's the characters that really make this so great. There are a lot of them, so I can't talk about all of them as much as I'd want, but really, there are a lot worthy of note, so bear with me, we might be here a little while. First we have Aang, the Avatar: The Last Airbender, the main character, everything he said in the title, that's him. He is a very fun-loving 12-year-old. He'd much rather go penguin sledding than save the world, but come on, he wouldn't want to go penguin sledding. Throughout the show, we see him take up the mantle of a hero, learning and growing. He faces many challenges throughout the show and is forced to face his fear and doubts on many occasions. It's seeing him overcome these challenges that really make him such a memorable character. Katara is the girl who released Aang from the iceberg, and after this, she and her brother Sokka joined Aang on his journey. Katara is a waterbender, though she is still a novice in many ways, especially with her aiming, as it does seem like most of the time Sokka is the one hit with her attacks and not the Fire Nation. Quite funny. Like Aang, we watch her grow throughout the series, becoming a powerful waterbender and also growing as a person. One thing that really stands out to me is how much she holds on to grudges. If you hurt those she loves, she will not easily forgive you. This adds a degree of realism to her character, as a simple apology isn't always enough to earn forgiveness. She's also the voice of reason to the group, oftentimes being the most grounded in her mission. Although she ended up being my least favorite of the main characters, but not because she was bad, she just did not have as much to stand out on her own. Sokka, on the other hand, is oftentimes just there for comedy. If someone is going to fall into the hole or be mocked by the laws of the universe, it's Sokka. He's also the only of the main characters to not be a bender, something which also leads to comedy from time to time. He does really grow throughout the series, oftentimes coming up with the idea that leads heroes to victory, and he also becomes a strong warrior with his sword and boomerang, and that's really cool to see. He doesn't need superpowers to stand on his own, and that's something that I really enjoyed. In Season 2, Toph joined the main group. She is an earthbender and begins traveling with a group to teach Aang earthbending. What is remarkable about her is that she's blind. However, she's trained herself to be able to see through earthbending. Anything attached to the ground she can see, at least to a degree. This gives her better sight than anyone else in some circumstances, but also leaves her powerless in others. I thought this was really a fascinating way to handle a disability like blindness. Of course, as a character, she is quite awesome too. She is a very strong-willed character from beginning to end, rebelling from her parents to travel with Aang. The only fault I have with her is that she doesn't really grow throughout the series, but that's not really a big issue, as she already knows who she is from the start, and her growth is more focused on the relationships she forms throughout the series. Of course, as good as the heroes are, and they are quite good, the villains of the story are the truly memorable ones. Prince Zuko of the Fire Nation, I believe, is the best character in the show. He has been exiled from his home for speaking out against his father, forced to travel the world in search of the Avatar, who at the start of the show probably doesn't even exist. He starts the show as a very arrogant and hot-headed character, a great villain really, but as the show's events unfold, this changes. Throughout his journey, he has to look at who he is, who he wants to be. He seeks to restore his honor, something that is told can only be done by returning home with the Avatar, but perhaps he can find his way to restore his own honor. I wish I could talk more about him, because he really does deserve it. I could do like a whole video on him and Iroh, and yeah, that would be awesome. Do you want to see that or not? Tell me, and maybe I'll do it. Anyway, as I said, we also have Iroh, Zuko's uncle, who travels with him, acting as his teacher. Iroh serves as a wise old man archetype, not unlike other cases such as Dumbledore from Harry Potter, Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, but what makes Iroh stand out is that he's advising one of the villains of the show. Iroh oftentimes acts very goofy, serving as comic relief, but this is only a mask for his true wisdom. He is one of my favorite characters of the show, and like Zuko, there's a lot more I could say about him, but he's worth watching for yourself. We also have Azula, Zuko's sister. Unlike Zuko, she is very cold, calculated, and merciless. She also is quite competent as a villain, both through her physical power and her cunning mind. She serves as a great foil to Zuko, being the perfect child while he was a failure. Of course, she gets her share of development as well. It is quite satisfying to see where her story goes. The last of the main villains is Fire Lord Ozai. Unfortunately, there really isn't all that much to talk about here. He wants to rule the world, he sets lots of things on fire, but that's about it. Sure, we get a little bit of backstory, but he's just a very generic villain. This isn't all that bad though, because he works in contrast to all the other more developed villains, and it gives Aang a good end goal to beat. As a final villain though, he works, especially since so many of the other characters skirt between black and white. It is kind of disappointing, though it's not really a big deal. Overall, though, we do have a great cast of characters. There's a lot to them, they have good development, and most importantly, they're just fun to watch. The show does a good job of bringing the viewer into these characters, and we really feel the journey with them, through both the comedy and the serious moments. Also, Boomy is awesome. That is all. Moving on. When judging the animation of Avatar, its quality depends on what you compare it to. Compare to the other shows on Nick, and it's completely amazing. Compared to the other anime that came out in 2005, it becomes less impressive. After all, 2005 was the year that Mars of Destruction came out. Wait, okay, animation 11 out of 10. So yeah, looking at those, Avatar does hold up quite well. While it's not immensely detailed, it shows what it needs to, and it was fluid throughout. What really stood out to me though were the battles. I really liked how they would use martial arts as a foundation for the bending, and it really added a lot to the battles. The soundtrack was also good, able to accent the mood, though really doesn't stand out that much on its own. It didn't have to, it just needed to make the epic battles more epic, and the other moments whatever they needed to be. Now on to sub versus dub. Or at least that's what I would say if I was reviewing an anime. In this case, we only have the English dub, which is quite good. All the voices fit well, though I think this is probably due to me seeing that for so long and getting the voices ingrained in my head, so it's like they have to fit by definition. But still, I enjoyed the dub. All the voice actors did a good job portraying the characters, and nothing I really found wrong with it, so yeah, dub's good. Avatar proves that a show need not contain a lot of violence or profanity or sexual content to tell an epic story. While the sequel has certainly spurred its popularity onward, it's no surprise to me that 10 years after the show first aired, it's still being talked about. This is a classic of Western animation, possibly one of the greatest Western animations ever created. Though I admit I haven't seen all of them, so I can't really say it's the greatest ever, but it's certainly up there. So with that, let us move on to the final score. I give Avatar The Last Airbender a score of an 8.53 out of 10 and a rating of worth watching because really, it is. If you liked Avatar, the obvious suggestion would be its sequel, Legend of Korra, but if you're looking for something that technically is anime, or you just want to get into anime, go check out Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood because that show is completely amazing. I don't care who you are, go watch it, it's awesome. If you're looking for another non-anime cartoon, how about Ben 10? Of course, I can't really say too much about beyond the first series, and I actually haven't seen all of that one, but still, of what I saw, I really liked it. It was one of those shows I always look forward to new episodes of. And that wraps it up for me. Thank you very much for watching. I do apologize if this video is a bit longer than others, but really, there's a lot to say here. I hope you enjoyed it though, and I will see you next time.